On this week's episode of the Wellness Empowerment Project, we speak with health coach Richele Henry. Have you ever heard of somatic experiencing? This is a modality that works on trauma resolution by connecting the brain with the body. Make sure you stick around to the end of the episode where we get real tactical about how to use this type of modality to learn about segment intending, tuning into your basic physical needs and how that relates to self-care, as well as everyday types of things such as making food decisions in a non-judgmental way. Hope you enjoy it.
Welcome to the Wellness Empowerment Project. I'm Trish.
And I'm Julie. We are two nurses exploring holistic healing and wellness practices to empower you to be the leader of your own health. Join us as we try out new things, or as we call it, weird shit, and have some fun along the way. Hey there. Today, Trish and I are welcoming Richele Henry. She is a trauma-informed health coach with over 15 years of experience in coaching and embodiment work. Her methodology integrates somatic experiencing, transformational coaching method, and human design. She has also served as a success coach and business mentor for aspiring coaches and entrepreneurs with world-renowned coaching programs such as the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, Health Coach Institute, and Live Your Message. Welcome to the show, Richele.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
My first question is about somatic work. Can you tell us what that is?
So everything somatic has to do with the body. Anything body related is somatic. The type of somatic work that I'm working with through the somatic experiencing program is a bottom-up approach. It's a body-based approach to healing traumas that the body never fully worked with. It's renegotiating what lives in our system and supporting our system to be able to have the most appropriate response to whatever is happening in our environment. Shall I say more, or do you?
I think that is a very succinct response. Because I feel like we hear the word somatics around all over the place, but everyone doesn't necessarily understand what the purpose is and what the utilization of it is either. When you were talking about that bottom-up approach, it really linked me to a lot of the yogic work, which is very similar in the sense of it's this bottom-up approach. It's how the body is actually communicating to the mind, and almost a flip of how we've been taught, in the sense of I think, been taught that the mind communicates with the body, which it does, but we've forgotten about the part that our body is communicating with our mind.
Absolutely, 100%.
What brought you to this work?
Oh, it's a long journey. I've been a dancer my whole life. I actually have my undergraduate degree in dance education. I've been a movement educator since 2002. I taught creative therapeutic movement to developmentally disabled adults, to women who are undergoing or surviving cancer treatment, senior citizens. I've taught children. I taught in a public school, grades 6 through 12. So I have a very strong background in movement and embodiment and taking a creative therapeutic approach to that. So movement for the sake of being in the body and being connected with the body. Then I transitioned into coaching and went fully deeply into that. I couldn't really, at the time, they were very separate to me. I couldn't really find a way to integrate them both. And then I had my first son in 2014, and that was a traumatic birth experience. He has ongoing disabilities that will impact him for the rest of his life. I didn't realize that postpartum PTSD was real until I listened to a podcast it was called Unexceptional Moms. It's a podcast, two moms who have children with varying disabilities, and they were interviewing a woman whose son had a medically traumatic birth, and she was talking about medical PTSD in children, but also in parents. And that was a little wake-up call to me that it was time for me to look into what I was dealing with postpartum. So I worked with a therapist. We did EMDR therapy for about 6 months, which really worked well for me. A lot of it felt very NLP based, which my transformational coaching method certification is based in NLP. So I could get what we were doing and it like made sense to me. It's interesting, I could not do the rapid eye movement. So in EMDR, you're watching the therapist move an item side to side and you're supposed to follow it with your eyes. And I could not do that at all. It gave me a migraine like instantly. She had these tappers, which were almost like the buzzers that you get at a restaurant when they're waiting to seat you. And the buzzer goes off and it's time for you to find your table. So there were two buzzers and they were buzzing right, left, left. And I was holding them in my hands while doing the EMDR therapy. And that kinesthetic input really worked for me. It was a more embodied approach to EMDR, and I appreciated that she had an alternative for me, someone who could not do the eye movement part of it. But the sides of my brain were getting lit up with having these buzzers in my hands alternating side to side. So that was extremely beneficial. It worked. I went on to have a second child. That birth was also traumatic, but I was not left traumatized because I had dealt with the trauma from the first birth. After that, I wanted to find a way that I could help other people bring this into my coaching. Things like EMDR, you're required to be like a licensed counselor to have those kinds of trainings or at least have a master's degree in psychology. I didn't have that at the time, so I looked into what else I could do. I learned about somatic experiencing. I found a practitioner close to me. This was in the beginning of the pandemic. We worked together remotely, and I did about a year of my own SE work. She happened to be someone who has an adult child with disabilities living with her. I thought, this is a person that I really want to learn from, because a big part of my journey is finding acceptance for inside myself for the reality that my child's going to be with me until I'm no longer here. And there's an ongoing grief around that journey. The work that we did together really helped me better regulate my own nervous system. I have a child who is an extreme sensory seeker. He like squeals and bangs things and makes loud noises all the time. My nervous system is always on fire. The SE has really helped me be able to be more settled. Like, I still get overwhelmed for sure. And so does my other son, who is more of a sensory avoidant. So it's interesting to see like how all of these different nervous systems and our needs cohabitate together in one small space. How do we navigate that together? We're learning about, and it's interesting, my younger son, he's 5, he said, "Mama, why do I have to cover my ears when you make my milkshake?" I make them like a smoothie in the blender. And because we have to prepare him, "Will you blast me off for your milkshake?" Okay, hold on a second. He turns off his video and covers his ears and then says, "Okay, blast off." And then we do the milkshake. But if I were to suddenly turn the blender on, he would just scream. The other day he said, "Why do I have to cover my ears when you make my milkshake?" And I said, "Sweetie, we all have different sensory preferences. And some things really are hard for some of us and aren't for others. Do you know how your older brother, when he hears a siren, he screams and runs around and doesn't know what to do? It really upsets him." And he said, "Yeah." I said, for him, that sensation, hearing the sudden sound of the siren, is upsetting for him. His nervous system doesn't like it. And similarly for you, you don't like the sound of the blender. And I said, "And Papa doesn't like the sound of me chewing." We all have these different sensory preferences, and none of them are right or wrong. As I am personally trying to understand my own nervous system, what overloads me, what floods me, what settles me, I'm also learning that for my older son, who cannot speak. He's non-speaking autistic and has a bunch of other things going on. And then my younger son, who's very aware and verbal and expressive, and trying to help him understand. SE has been a beautiful gift for me personally, for my own nervous system, for my family, us learning how to be in the world, being sensitive beings and all having different sensitivities. Also It's been such a beautiful gift to be able to support my clients in this way. I feel like the nervous system work has been a big missing piece in the past. With health coaching, it's like so many of the women that have come to me in the past have wanted to do things like lose weight, and being able to support them to see that an underlying issue, and this is part of my journey too, is emotional eating. And if I know for me personally, I have been going to food to regulate my nervous system since I can remember, since I was probably like 4 years old, when my parents would be fighting and no one was there to comfort me. Guess who did? Hostess Twinkies and other Breyer's mint chocolate chip ice cream. Those were the ways that I learned how to soothe my jangled nervous system. I am really appreciating being able to frame this work in a way that supports my clients to be better able to hold discomfort when it shows up and to be able to find ways to work with it, what's happening in my body, and to be really curious about what's happening inside, and to be able to slow everything down and not go right into the knee-jerk response of, I'm uncomfortable, I don't want to feel this discomfort, whatever my go-to is, Netflix or scrolling on Facebook or putting something in my mouth or smoking a cigarette or having a glass of wine. Can I be with and can I hold this discomfort that I am feeling, even if I don't really know what it's about? Can I work with, and Trish was saying, can I use my conscious mind to be able to, because it needs a job, to be able to decipher and interpret what's happening on the inside so I can get closer to myself, so that I can really hold myself in whatever experience I'm having and then be able to move through it and not have to do the compulsion or whatever the thing is, our go-to thing for self-soothing, so that we can not feel, so that we can numb out, or so that we can override caffeine and sugar. Ooh, let me get that high so I can get out of this low. There's so many different ways that we do that in our modern society. This SE work is an invitation to slow down and stay in curiosity about what's happening on the inside. I just talked a lot. I want to check in with you all, what's landing or what's coming forward for you.
I feel like there's so many ways we can take this conversation. First piece, I just wanted to clarify. What
Mm-hmm.
does SC stand for again?
Somatic experiencing.
Somatic experience.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to make sure because I thought I heard it, but I wasn't sure. When you just talked about us being in discomfort, we definitely have been taught to avoid discomfort. I think maybe not always consciously, but subconsciously, culturally, we've been taught to avoid discomfort. It's always been like, what do you like? Or if it doesn't feel great, just you don't have to worry about doing it. When you talk about sitting with that discomfort, that's not something you typically hear people talk about. How do we sit with it? How do we work through it? I'd like to hear, how has your health coaching experience, because you talked about with women and sugar and their bodies and weight, that's something we've all struggled with, no matter what shape or size you are. I think at some point, some woman has had maybe not the best healthy relationship with our body or food or drinks. How has your work changed with them? How have you seen a difference in that pre integration of the somatic work versus post integration of the somatic work?
It's such a good question, and something I'm really present to, because I just ran a new group program over the fall, and it was really beautiful. I integrated a lot of this somatic work and somatic inquiry into that program. In the past, I just want to have compassion for myself and everyone else wherever we were at that time earlier. There was a real sense of not necessarily urgency, but in the past I led a program called the Sugar Detox, and Trish, you participated in that many times. There was a start and an end. We're going to do this from this day to this day. These are the foods that are out. These are the foods that are in. It was very, very prescriptive. These are the rules. There was an invitation where if you fell off track or had any indiscretions, forgive yourself and get back on the horse and keep moving. I hesitated to lead that program again for a lot of reasons. One of them being that There were several women in the community that had expressed some level of disordered eating in the past, and that the sugar detox triggered that for them. The sort of, now I'm weighing and measuring myself again, and now I'm writing down everything I eat. And those things aren't inherently bad, but when it starts to become something where I'm watching the scale so closely, and any movement in any direction, if the scale shows that it's less, then suddenly I'm euphoric, and but then if the scale shows that I've gained any weight, then suddenly everything's a disaster. Now my system is on fire. What am I doing wrong? It felt like it was a little bit too intense, and I didn't want to be someone who, perpetuated harm in any way. I really looked at, how could I make this program in a way that will be supportive, where people can be in an inquiry, because there was a strong response from the community saying, we do want something like this again. And it was important to me that it be trauma informed this time. I didn't know what trauma informed was back in 2008 when I ran the first sugar detox. I just am acknowledging that. This time, I invited everyone to an experience where, let's take a break from sugar and processed foods. Let's have an inquiry around, is this something that is working for me? What would it be like to have a break from it? Let me notice changes in my body. And here are some tools for being with the discomfort when it shows up. Like, here are the different types of cravings. There are environmental cravings. It's in my environment, therefore I want it. I know there's cookies in the cabinet, therefore I want them. If they weren't there, I might not even be thinking about it. There's biochemical cravings. It could be that I am having cravings for salt because I'm lacking minerals. There's social cravings. Everyone is having a drink. I want to have one because everyone's having one. There were like 6 different categories that I discovered, but it was helpful for people to see, oh, I'm not weak and I have no willpower. Here are these situations that are like setups for me to want that thing. And oh, I can have compassion for myself, and I can have a better understanding of what's happening inside of me. A lot of it was just bringing this really non-judgmental inquiry to our relationship with food. What I found is that a lot of the people who had done the sugar detox in the past were like, just tell me what to eat. I just don't know what's in or out. And I was like, and I shared in the beginning, that's not what this experiment is. It's for you to decide. For some people, that was really hard because they are accustomed to, probably for their whole lives, following diet plans or things that say this is what's in and what's out, and somehow they feel safe inside of that. Like, I can trust this plan. And what I really want to invite them to do is trust yourself. What is your body saying it needs? I can really get a sense for me, and I don't limit any particular foods. I don't eat a lot of sugar, but I don't not allow myself to have it. There was a 5-year period of time in my life where I didn't eat sugar at all because I didn't trust myself with it. Now I can trust myself, and I can't bring things into the house and not hide them from my husband because he'll eat them before I can. But so if I want something, I have to tuck it away in a place he can't find so that I can enjoy it. But that's another conversation. But for other people, it was so refreshing for them because they were like, oh, you mean I don't have to have rules? I can just check in with my body. Like, oh, I can check in with my hunger cues and my cues for satiety. I can follow that. It's okay to trust myself. One woman shared with me, this is so beautiful. She said, I've been doing weight loss programs since, I don't know what she said, she was in her 20s. So, like, for 30 years, starting with Weight Watchers, for 30 years, I've been trying out different things and then yo-yoing, gaining, losing, gaining, losing. And she said, this is the first time that I've really let myself not have rules, and I didn't feel out of control. This was like an epiphany for her, just really powerful. Not everyone is in the same place. I think for some people, it was like the right time for them to go, oh, you mean I don't have to look for someone or something outside of me to tell me what I need? My body actually gets to decide that. For some people, it was like, I don't understand that. Like, we're speaking different languages. And for other people, they were like, oh, thank God. Like, I can just relax now. That's the point of it. If our body, this is my belief, this doesn't come from any particular paradigm, but my belief is that if we are constantly dieting or trying to make our body different, there is something inside of us that feels unsafe. Our mind has this picture of how our body should be, and that's likely informed from what our family said about a woman's body and what our society shows us a woman's body should be through advertising, which is like not real. Oh my gosh, horrible yardstick to measure ourselves against, right? If my body doesn't feel safe, and this is the vehicle that I am moving around life in, then it's going to be a constant fight between what my mind says my body should do. My body's going to be like, no, not doing that. It's going to find all manner of ways to rebel from what our mind is trying to make our body be. What I aiming to do for myself, and then hopefully imparting this to my clients, is having an integration. Let's have our mind still have its job. What if the body actually becomes the one that informs what the needs are? And then the mind gets to say, I know how to meet that need. Let's do this. And living in partnership versus at war with.
That balance and integration between the mind, body, and spirit, I think, is not spoken about enough. That there are certain elements of how it's like that book, The Body Keeps Score.
Yeah.
Certain elements, physical elements within your body that communicates different things. The physical elements are influenced by different ways that you nourish yourself, things that you eat. So there's physical aspects of how that impact yourself physically, as well as the emotional pieces. It sounds to me like the somatic work is really about integrating those communication pathways physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and how you can become attuned to listening to yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a beautiful way of putting it.
When you do somatic experiencing, do you do specific exercises, or what does that look like?
I might just invite you both, if you're open, to have your feet connect to the floor. Yeah, and just arrive in your body in this moment and take a moment to bring your awareness to the bottoms of your feet. You might be barefoot or wearing socks or fuzzy slippers or shoes, but just notice what it feels like for the bottoms of your feet to make contact with the floor beneath you. You might even mentally scan the outline of your footprint and think about making a footprint in the sand and letting your feet sink a little bit deeper into the floor, imagining the support of the floor rising up to meet your feet. And just take a moment to check in and notice the sensations there. What's the temperature? Is it pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral?
I actually have a grounding mat, so I'm barefoot and I have my feet on my grounding mat, so it feels smooth. I notice different parts of my feet that actually touch the mat, whereas other parts are a little bit more raised, and different pressures in the different areas of my feet.
Mhm. Yeah.
So there's a little tingling,
Yeah, a little
prob
tingly.
probably from that grounding mat, I'm not sure, but that's the sensations that came to mind.
Yeah, and a lot of that is like exteroception, like what I notice on the inside, and then a little bit of interoception. I notice some tingling. That's a little bit on the inside. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. How about you, Trish? Did you notice anything?
Yeah, so I actually have a new pair of fuzzy slippers on, and I really did feel like my feet were a lot of parts of my feet were essentially touching that fuzzy part, but I was able to also notice the firmer portion that was on the ground. And I also really did feel like there's this a temperature sensation where around my toes, it's a little cooler than
Uh-huh.
it was on like the tops of my feet.
Yeah, nicely noticed. And for you, Trish, was it pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral?
Oh, I think it was pleasant.
How about you for how about for you, Julie?
Oh, definitely pleasant.
Yeah. So that's just one little grounding exercise, one little 2-minute check-in with the body. But being able to notice what's happening exteroception. So I'm noticing the temperature of the room. I can feel my skin is warm or cool or whatever it is. I'm noticing a little bit of tingling, that inside interoception, being able to just pause the movement and check in. This is where my feet are in this moment. You can do a similar exercise looking around your space and just noticing one thing in your space that is actually pleasant or comforting for you, and then notice what happens on the inside, sensations and emotions when you look at that object. Those are two grounding and settling exercises. And then with the somatic work, the point is not to be all zen and good vibes only all the time. It's about being able to be with activation of the nervous system when it's there and to be able to settle. So there's something called pendulation where you go back and forth between activation and settling cycles. And this is something that is done with a practitioner, but once you get a sense of it, you can use it as a tool yourself. I'm noticing, I'm feeling hot, I'm noticing a sense of like rising water in my chest. Okay, it's all the way up to my throat. Okay, I'm noticing that my body wants to take a big gulp. Okay, now I notice I was not breathing. My breathing was really stopped, but now I was able to take a deeper breath. Okay, now I notice that sensation is settling back down into my belly and I'm not feeling as hot anymore. I'm noticing my temperature feels normal. My heartbeat was higher, but now it's starting to be more normal. So when you're working with content with a client, and for me, I'm not a licensed therapist, so I'm not working with big traumatic memories. We're working with whatever's happening in the body in the moment. We don't even have to say what happened, but someone can bring something to a session. If I just say, for example, what might happen if you put your hand on your belly? Oh, there's so much there. Oh, okay, what's happening? And then this client might share with me, it's very activating for them to draw any attention to their belly because their whole life they've been trying to get rid of this belly, or this belly has caused lots of medical problems, or this belly, fill in the blank of meaning that they have about its shape or size or what it is. Then we would just work with the activation that's there in the moment. We wouldn't work with all the memory, but we would then find something in their body that does feel regulated, that does feel comfortable, that does feel settled, or at least neutral. And then we would go back and forth between those. We'd dip into the activation, then we dip into what feels comfortable. The point of that being that when we can train our nervous system to be able to be with both, we can more often than not respond appropriately to whatever's happening in our environment. So if someone is in shutdown a lot, if they're in collapse, and clinically that might look like depression or something like it can be hard to mobilize. It can be hard to actually take action when it's necessary to take action. By doing these activation and settling cycles, it supports their system to be able to mobilize when that's appropriate. For someone who's really high activation all the time, hypervigilant, that might look clinically like anxiety. We might be able to train their nervous system to be able to say, even if for 30 seconds, can I find something comfortable and can I actually rest back in the chair? That might be all that they can do, right, for the first several sessions. But over time, I noticed I was able to sit down. For me, I can't even tell you how long, I could not sit down until my children were asleep because I was afraid that if I sat down, I wouldn't be able to get back up. So I just kept going. I kept standing. I kept doing. And now it's like my body is telling me I'm tired. I need to sit and rest. And I can give myself permission to do that. What a gift that is. And when I need to get up, when something is calling me to get up, mama, I need this, or this needs to happen, I can get up without fear of going into a collapse that I'm not going to be able to get back. These are just a couple of examples of like how this looks in real time and what the point of it is. It's, can I have a nervous system that breathes, that isn't just inhaling and hypervigilant all the time, or that's not just completely on exhale and collapsed all the time? Can I be able to take a full breath in and a full breath out? Can my nervous system respond to whatever is happening in real time? And that takes time to be able to develop, but that's the goal.
I really resonated when you said that a lot of your clients that were used to the way of having the structure, the meal plans, the what's in, the what's out, that structure provided them a safety. Having this window of exploration made them feel unsafe. I think that's interesting because I think a lot of us are may not view that behavior as your body feeling unsafe, having that ability to learn from the inside what your body's telling you. I think that we've been taught so much, especially when it comes to diet, exercise, and our body, to listen from the cues from the outside. And it sounds like that's a probably a pretty big shift for a lot of people to try to make because we have all these celebrations that are with food. You may ingrain that you eat at a certain time. You really made me aware too of I definitely have this habit, I would say, of coming home and eating something when I
Yeah.
get home from work, whether I'm hungry or not.
It's a
Come home,
great transition point, right? Like
yes,
transitioning from one thing to other, have a snack, and then I could go into the next thing. Or it's going to buy me time to figure out what I need to do next. I'm not clear. It's just great to identify that, noticing that pattern. It might be that you are hungry, and then you might take a moment to check in. Am I actually hungry, or is this just my transition point? What else could be useful or supportive in this transition point if I'm not hungry?
if we've identified a transition point, because I think that's half the battle right there, right? At least identifying and realizing, okay, I'm totally using this as a transition point. It may not be necessary for my body to do. Do you suggest doing some of these practices to help work through that discomfort? Because I
Yeah.
think that's the point, right? Is that even if we recognize it, it still comes up, but you still already have it habitually in your system to go for it. It's okay, now how do we work through that discomfort?
Stretching out time, so slowing everything down. So you might start with one little thing, like when you get home, do you take your keys or your purse and put them in a specific spot?
I do.
Yeah. So you might anchor onto that behavior. Like, okay, the keys in the purse, they go somewhere. And then I take my coat off. And before I go right to wherever the places that I might eat, whether it's the refrigerator or the pantry, I might pause and just check in with my body. Say, okay, what am I needing in this moment? What are you needing? However you want to frame it. Asking your body, what are you needing? Or saying, what am I needing right now? And am I truly hungry? If there's still that impulse, because that is a neural pathway that's been carved in, right, for however many years that you've been practicing that. I come home, I grab something to eat even if I'm not hungry. So checking in, am I hungry? What am I needing? Is there something else that I could do that could support that need? It could be that what I'm needing is to settle my nervous system because I've been driving at 70 miles an hour for 50 minutes. I need to de escalate that movement in my nervous system. What's a way that I can do that? Is it through going for a walk outside, which I know it's freezing there, so probably not? Is it do I want to roll out my yoga mat and do shavasana for 5 minutes? Do I want to do 10 jumping jacks? Do I need to reset my energy with a quick shower before I start making dinner? It's building in different alternatives that could work for you. And none of the things I suggested may be the ones that go for you, but you might find something else. For some people, it's I just need a cup of tea. If I just have a cup of tea that's like warm, it's comforting, it's settling to my nervous system, and it's something that I'm ingesting, but it's not necessarily food if I don't need food right now. It's just looking to see for you, Trish, what is the thing that you think that you're needing in those moments of transition that the food provides for you?
Yeah, it's interesting because as you were talking, when you first said to slow things down, I'm literally picturing myself when I walk in the door and there's nothing slow about it. I run in the door, I drop everything down, grab the stuff. It's almost like I'm moving as quick as humanly possible to get to the next thing. I think definitely slowing down the pace of all of that. You mentioned shower, even though I can't say I need to do it all the time, but I do recall, especially during COVID time, I would come home and I would go and I would take a cold shower. I thought it was a great way to separate the work time from the home time. It was this great separation and it was a great transition. Is that something I incorporate again right now? Or is there another way that I can transition this time, whether it's a breathwork practice or my guess is that I need something of movement because I'm just coming from the car.
Yeah, and especially if your body is like everything is fast, you might do
Yes.
you might do a couple of sun salutations, even if it's in the evening,
Mhm.
just to
Yeah.
move your body. And you can start with a quicker pace if that's where your body is at, and then slowly bring the level down.
Yes. So I'm
And
not charged up for the night, but short and sweet, just to shift some energy
couple of
through.
minutes, because how long does it take to go grab a snack and eat it? Just a couple of minutes. Probably want something that matches that. And I like something, this is like a Abraham Hicks exercise, but it's called segment intending. Before I move on to the next thing, that transition point is an opportunity to segment intend. What do I intend to do with this next segment of time? Okay, what needs to be done is I need to get dinner prepared and ready by this time. What do I need to do? I need to get everything out. I need to chop this. I need to bake that. I need to da da. It's like in your mind or even on paper, going through, this is what I'm going to do first, second, third. And when dinner is over, then you might do another segment intend. Okay, I might be inclined to have a dessert and watch something, or have a glass of wine and watch something. Is that what I want to do with this next segment? Do I want to do something different? Then you set yourself up for, here's how I want the next segment to go. If your partner is home and you want to co-create something, you could share it. Okay, this is something my husband and I do together. Oftentimes we're doing different things. We're going to split off. This is what I'm going to do with my segment. This is what he's going to do with his segment, but speaking it out loud, and we can just check in with each other. Oh, I see you're playing cards again. Is that what you want to be doing? We can do it in a way that is not judgmental, just checking in with, here's what I
Yeah.
heard you wanted to do with your time. Is this supporting you? Is that loving? But even just checking in with yourself to say, this is what I had intended.
I think that's really great because I definitely love to come home and even on the weekends be like, okay, what's your plan? I know my husband sometimes gets very resistant when I ask that question. I'm definitely more of a structured person and he's more loosey goosey. We'll say our plan and it's okay, this is the plan. Yeah, it's how do we communicate all that in a very non judgmental way, especially when you've been with someone for so long. We've probably become overly comfortable with each other. We've all been married long enough. We know what we're saying here. But when they come with the phone, oh, you're playing your game. Okay. But I like that way of we can be non-judgmental and just be like, is this really what we want to do with this segment of time?
Yeah, and we can be that for ourselves too. I think, especially around relationship with food, we can get really judgy about our choices, or the mind can be very judgy about what we've chosen. And sometimes it helps to just create that separation. What Julie was saying about integration is important, but also being able to see that there's these different parts of me. There's this part of me that's do it, eat the cheesecake. My husband bought a piece of cheesecake to either celebrate or drown in his sorrows based on what the outcome of the Ravens game was going to be last night. Okay, it ended up being a celebratory piece of cheesecake. I was like, oh, you got cheesecake? It's an interesting choice. That's not really what I would choose, but he let my 5-year-old have a taste of it and he was like, this is yummy. So I had a sliver of it and it was like, okay, cool. We're all celebrating this thing together. It's not something that I really want to have again, but for him, it was the greatest thing ever. He was so happy to have it. And I don't have any judgment of myself having some. Earlier in the day, I might have been like, no, but my body felt pretty good. I'm like, can I handle this? I took a digestive enzyme. It's okay. It's not going to have a huge impact on me. But other days, I might be like, I'm already not feeling that good. I'm going to choose not to, and I'm not going to feel deprived because I'm choosing what I'm putting into my body. Or my mind might be like, you should have that, or you shouldn't have, whatever it makes up. But I'm always now, as a practice, checking in with my body and going, can I synthesize this? Is this something that I can actually take in and process right now? Sometimes it's nope, isn't that's not what I need. And other times it's yeah, we could handle that. And I go with that. But just coming back to this idea of the mind might have ideas about what we should do, even like what we should do with our time. If we do that check-in, and then the body says, I need to rest. I've been going all day. Yes, your mind is still, or we're all still very buzzy. We've got a lot of energy from the day and we're coming home with that. Let's do a movement practice to move some of that energy through, and then we'll check in and see what we need. After you do a movement practice, you might need to just lay on the floor for 5 minutes. You might be ready to get into action and go into the next thing, but it's being able to really honor what's coming up. Here's another thing that came up a lot in this last group experience that I taught. It was called whole body nourishment. Sometimes our body tells us that we need something, and it's not a good time for that. Sometimes I'm preparing to bake a chicken and I've got a raw chicken in my hands and my kids, Mom, I need you to, and I'm like, I hear that. I also am like cuddling a raw chicken right now. I cannot physically do that for you. So give me 3 minutes. Sometimes it's just, I hear that request and I'm going to come back to it later, but I can't meet that need right now. You might be in the middle of a workday and your body is, I am so exhausted, I need rest. You can't lay down in the middle of your workday. It's just not possible. So you can say to that part, I hear you, and there is something, I hear this part saying we are so deeply exhausted. I cannot meet that need for rest right now. What I can do is I'm going to step outside. I'm going to take some conscious breath and walk back in. And I promise you, as soon as there's an opportunity for us to rest, I'm going to honor this. I'm not abandoning you. I hear you, and I'm going to meet that need in the best way I can in this moment. And we're going to really meet that need as soon as is possible. Something inside shifts. I know for a lot of us, this starts in childhood. Say you're on a road trip with your family and you're like, I have to pee. They're like, I just stopped 15 minutes ago. I'm not stopping again. Whatever it is. And then you have to hold it and like your bladder is going to burst because it's inconvenient for the adults for you to stop to find a place to go to the bathroom. Or eat everything on your plate. Well, I'm not hungry. Or I want seconds. You shouldn't eat more. My body's telling me I'm hungry. We have to find a way to reparent younger parts of us that are still very much alive inside in the now. If we didn't get our needs met when we were younger, or we were told our needs are inconvenient, we can constantly, even as adults, override what our body is actually telling us it needs. And that's a rupture. This work is about repairing that relationship with ourselves and with our body, and really, as best as we can, honoring and meeting the needs that it's telling us that it has.
That just came to my mind when you were talking about being on a road trip and your parents saying, we're not stopping, you having to delay going to the restroom. It makes me think a lot about when you're denying yourself of basic physical needs for a long period of time. What does that actually do to your nervous system?
Yeah, that's a good question. Everyone's system is different. For some people, that might cause shutdown. I'm never listened to. My needs are never met. I'm just going to shut down. I'm going to be as invisible and as small and as inconspicuous as possible. For other people, it looks a little more high activation. Oh my gosh, I have this. This is a need. Hello, can anybody hear me? I have needs. I'm being very over exaggerating, but we can see how dysregulating either of those can be, right? It's helpful to just recognize. For me, it probably was the latter. And I often look to my partner to try to meet my needs. I had to learn this is not his job. It's my job. I'm the one over here reparenting myself. Also, I have 2 little ones that I'm also parenting. Sometimes it can feel like my needs are on the bottom of a shoe. And to be aware of, whoa, this reaction that I had, that is more about a culmination of however many years of needs not being expressed in a way that they could be heard and met. Wow, whatever that was, it wasn't about this one request. It was about years and years of requests and needs that are not seen and met.
I see this a lot in nursing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
I was going to say, it's like a requirement to be a nurse is to resolve your needs, to go to the bathroom,
Yep.
to eat. I still have a bad habit of when I come home and I eat, I still eat standing up.
Yeah. Yeah, because you just never know when you're going to gotta go. got to
Mhm.
put down that thing and right? You just never know when you're going to have to be pulled into how many years
How
has it been since you were on a unit?
Yeah, it's been a number of years. I think that's one of the reasons that when I'm with my husband, I try to make us go out to eat. It's not that I want to go to a restaurant or do anything big. It's more of I feel like that's the only time we can actually like sit down and have a conversation. Because when we're at home, I'm like, okay, hurry up, eat it, get it done.
I
Yeah.
think I was in the military for 31 years. And when I went through basic training, our dining experience was we had to get in and out of the dining facility very quickly. They gave us a very large spoon that was like a serving spoon. They said, don't bother with the knife, just shovel it in. And after 2 minutes, you got in you what you got in you, and you had to get up and get out. When I came home, after eating like that, it was literally, I could not stop eating in that way. It was literally just shovel it as much in as I possibly could, as fast as I could, and then it was done, and then move on. Then I went into nursing years later, which perpetuated that same type of thing, which didn't bother me because it felt very familiar.
We're
So
probably cheered on for it. It's probably, man, she got that down quick. I wish I could do that.
don't even bother chewing.
Yeah.
That was my drill sergeant. Why are you chewing? Just get it in. Now, we all know that's not so great for your digestive system. I think that there's a lot of power in really knowing, yes, these systems or these structures or the external things may have been brought to us, but we are able to create boundaries to say, I'm going to do this, or I can meet these basic needs in different ways to stop some of those things that we're all internalizing. As a nurse on a floor, is it really that I can't stop and use the bathroom? Or am I allowing all of these external tasks that I have to do from making me make a different choice for myself? That is a big culture shift within the nursing industry that I feel like there's a groundswell for. However, right now it's everybody's hair is on fire and they're having that response that you said, these are my needs. You're not meeting them. When reality is everybody else doesn't have to tell you to meet your own needs. You have to allow yourself to meet your needs. And you
Hmm.
can figure out a way. Nurses are very creative in figuring out tasks and priorities and making sure that they are also a priority.
Yeah, and really what I hear you saying is we're born and then we get conditioned by our environment. We can get conditioned by our experiences, the conditioning that you got in the military, and then the conditioning that you got being a nurse. They matched each other. You don't rest for any moment of time, even when you eat. It's a dire situation. You have to do it as soon as possible. Being able to let yourself have an exhale. It's a lot of that inhale energy, that hypervigilance, because you just never know what's going to happen next. You have to be on your toes and ready and going on to the next thing. I understand that and I value it. And thank you for your service. Thank you both for your contributions to the medical profession. I also hear that you're really trying to help change the narrative, right? Who says that you cannot have needs? I think this is a big thing. Caregiver burnout. Burnout is huge in the medical industry and any caregiving role, period. Especially during and since COVID, it's just gotten so much worse. There are a lot of people mass exodus out of these professions because they just cannot sustain it anymore physically.
You bring up a really good point when you say the mass exodus. That piece is almost like you can't do it anymore. People are just leaving. I think that's a big piece is that because people haven't been taught, we haven't had the conversations, we haven't been supporting each other in ways to nurture each other and to change the dynamic and to change that narrative.
If there was a conversation, we could probably look at every industry and apply it in some way, but there's something so special and specific about nursing. You're on a unit, and what if there was a new conversation? How can we give the best possible care to our patients today? How can each and every one of us get our basic needs met. Let's make sure Trish gets her break when she needs it to eat and go to the bathroom. Let's make sure Julie gets time to go outside and breathe because that's what she needs. But what would it take? It takes a conversation and it takes buy-in from all parties. It takes from the top down creating a culture that is person first, not what is our bottom line and right money first, which I see in different ways very much happening inside of the medical system. It's caring more about the money than it is about even the patients, but certainly not about the people who are providing the care. What happens is the whole system breaks down when there's no one to provide the care.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing this all in real time. And I think that could be another reason why so many are leaving is that not only are my needs not getting met and I can't handle it anymore, I don't even see my needs as being of value from a system perspective. With that said, Richele, so much great information. To wrap this up a bit, if someone wanted to start making a little subtle shift in their own life, what are maybe the top 3 things they could start focusing on using some of your tools or your work?
I would say picking something that they want to have a shift in. If we could use your example, Trish, because it's so very real. I notice I'm doing this habit of as soon as I get home, I go for something to eat. I want to shift that, having some self inquiry. Okay, what is it that I want to have a shift in? What's a behavior that I do that I am curious about changing? Then it's exploring what is the positive intention of that behavior. We might look at what is that stopping to get a snack after work. It gives you it buys me time. It's a transition point. I explored some of that. It makes me take a pause and slow down. What's another way that I could get that need met? And we explored some ways. It's having this self inquiry around what is the behavior? What does it actually do for me? What's the positive intention of it? What's the need that it meets? What is something else that I could do instead that could help me meet that need? And the second thing I would say is finding those moments in the day where you can slow down. Julie's point about conditioning, when I'm in environments that tell me or show me, it might not be explicit, it might just be implied, you do not get to rest for 1 second. You are not entitled to any rest. Finding moments in the day, even if it is when you're driving, it's can I allow myself to slow everything down? Can I watch 3 inhales and exhales? I don't even have to make them deeper. Can I just notice my breath? Can I look outside and notice the barren trees? Can I notice the blue sky even though it's like a cold winter day? It's finding little micro moments where you can let your system slow down. The third thing I would say is to be open to having more connection with your body. Noticing, oh, I'm currently sitting with my foot tucked underneath me. My foot is falling asleep. Let me relax that leg down and let my foot is showing me I'm losing circulation. Let me meet that need in these like little ways. I'm just going to let my leg go down and now I'm feeling blood returning to my foot. These little moments where, oh, I'm noticing I have to go to the bathroom. My bladder is full, but I just want to finish this last email. No, I'm going to get up and go to the bathroom because that's what my body is telling me I need. So it's okay. Finding little moments in the day where you can hear your body saying something and meet that need immediately. That's going to start that repair process and
I
build.
think that's huge when you hear the body's need and actually responding to it. Because I've been guilty of the email situation too. Let me finish one more thing. Yes. Richele, it was so wonderful talking with you today. Can you just tell us what do you have coming up next? How can people find you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was really wonderful to connect with you both. My website is richelehenry.com. I offer a free 30-minute connection call, and I usually do that first before working with anyone just so we can get a feel for each other and see if it's a good fit energetically. Sometime in the spring, I'm going to run the whole body nourishment group program again. I don't have exact dates, but I'll have those on my website as soon as I know when that's going to be.
Are you also on Instagram or on social media at all?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm probably most active on Facebook, but people can find me and it's just my name, Richele Henry.
We will make sure that all of those things are in our show notes so our audience can find you very easily.
Thank you. And best of everything with your podcast. Thank you for the beautiful conversations that you're sharing with the world.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, subscribe, and share with a friend. Want to learn more about a specific topic? Drop us a line on our website and we can explore it deeper with you.